Holy moly, we made it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Happy Hour live chat. Happy Thursday. How are you, Chad Ashley?
Doing well. Doing really well.
Good. Good to hear.
Have some coffee.
Oh my goodness. Too much coffee today. I switched to the LaCroix, maybe a beer in a little bit. We got to get through a little bit of learning, a little bit of talking, a little bit of answering questions from you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We see so many of you in the comments already, even before we launched here. Daniel, Jeff, Dylan, thank you guys. Let us know where you're from. We love seeing all the countries and states and parts of the world you guys are joining the live show from. And do us a favor, we just went live, and help us out on YouTube by hitting the thumbs up button. It'll help YouTube tell more people that are interested in learning Cinema 4D, that are interested in talking about cameras and all the fun stuff we'll be talking about today. Help us out by hitting that thumb thing, and it'll wake YouTube up. It'll shake them and say, yo, let's get the Cinema 4D friends in here. Joel, what's up?
Slap them.
Joel really needs a happy hour today. Thank you.
We could all use a happy hour.
We can help out. Omaha, what's up? That's amazing. Bulgaria, El Salvador, right here in Chicago. Clayton, what's up? Cheers.
South Africa coming in.
Dude, amazing. Brooklyn, Russia, Oklahoma, Chicago.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. So people from everywhere.
Guys, thank you guys so much. It's amazing to see everybody from all over the world. Just bought GSG Plus. Awesome. Ian, thank you so much.
Cheers.
Welcome. And for anybody here from Greyscalegorilla Plus, thank you guys for joining us in the live show. We're going to be answering your questions. And we could talk at first. Here's what we're going to do today. Let's set the stage. We're going to try to answer almost any type of question early on, any big questions we see that are pressing, something we can help with. And then in a little bit, once we get everybody in the chat, we're going to switch to talking about cameras in Cinema 4D. And cameras, for some of you, you might be thinking, how boring is camera? Now, I want to just tell you the subtle changes that a camera can do to your scene add up to become not so subtle. And I think you'll be surprised on the power of choosing the right camera, choosing the right lens, working with depth of field, working with the right film aspect ratio, and what it means to your render and what you're trying to accomplish in Cinema 4D. So stay tuned, get your questions ready. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for saying hi. This is great as well.
This one, cameras are boring. That's why I logged in for this talk.
Good. We got the boring crew today. Is that what's going on?
I guess.
Heck no. This is going to be fun, guys. Mark knows. Make it all anamorphic.
Oh yeah.
That's really the secret.
Sure.
Cameras are everything. Look, we're going to be talking, and this actually came about from last week's, or actually 2 weeks ago, live show. We were talking about lighting, and of course, what do you do anytime you render anything in Cinema 4D? You always use a camera. And of course, we were tweaking and setting our camera settings, and we were talking a lot about how much this matters. And we asked you guys if you wanted to have an entire show all about cameras, and many of you commented on that live show recording and said yes. So we are here to do that for you guys. You guys asked for it. Now you're going to get it. Look, now you're going to get it. Let's see what else we got here. Camera is everything. Can't wait for this chat. Absolutely. I'll get into a quick story about cameras. Write it down on my notes. Travis, what's up? Cheers. Thank you, guys. Do we have a link to the light video? What's the name of that video, Chad, that they could go search?
Let me check. I think it's called...
It's our last live show. If you search maybe Greyscalegorilla Live,
it's called Your C4D Lighting Questions Answered.
Boom. There it is. Search the YouTube for that one and check it out. Some great stuff. We even do some screen sharing like we'll be doing today. We'll be jumping into Cinema 4D and showing you exactly how we set up cameras and exactly how to create the look you're going for, not just with lights, like, you know, obviously lights matter, obviously materials matter, But we're also going to be talking about camera today, show you what to worry about. All right, what else we got here? Hey, Linus, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Linus.
Cheers, buddy. Hope Chicago's treating you well. Slovakia's here.
Man, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Love it.
Have you used the bokeh packs or anything? Have you tweaked the bokeh in Redshift or Octane? I know you can add like iris little smudges and stuff like that. Have you messed around with that?
Yeah, I have a set of bokeh maps that I've had for like since V-Ray days way back, and even like when I think I was loading them into LensCare too at one point. But yeah, I use them not very often though, because really, to get any real definition in that shape, the samples in Redshift have to be pretty damn high. So I kind of like, oh, thanks, Denny. Yeah, I kind of just stopped doing it, really.
Awesome. Well, let's do this. Everybody get a few questions ready. Here's a quick one. Obviously, NFT is going crazy right now in our space. I know I've hopped on a few Clubhouse calls, learning quite a lot about it. I've purchased a few of them. Chad, you've put some of these out, actually. You had a few of them have the auction end yesterday. And I think one's still available, right?
Yeah, my last one is still out there, but yeah, the first two went pretty quick. In fact, a guy I know bought one of them.
I had to get it. I had to get it. Look, when you make shiny spheres as nice as Chad Ashley, you got to grab them. So I bring it up mostly because many of you have been asking questions about it on Twitter. And I don't think today's the show to really dive deeper into it. But if you guys want to learn more about it, I know I've been learning a ton about it. And I know Chad, obviously, he went through the entire process all the way to put the art up and have it sold. And so we might be able to answer some of those questions for you guys, some NFT questions. Let us know, actually, if you want to hear NFT, say like, yes, NFT. And then if you're tired of it, you're like, can we not? Let us know as well in the comments. We love seeing all these comments from YouTube. We see you guys from Twitch as well. Facebook. Thank you guys so much for saying hi. What's an NFT? We may have to start from the beginning here. Maybe on a different show from today, but let's see here. Ryan, we love super shallow depth of field just because we can. That's the best part, Ryan. The giant, the beautiful f-stop. You don't have to pay the thousands of dollars for the nice lens to do it. You just get it for free, right?
Well, you gotta wait for it.
It does take longer to render. Dang it.
So
you're right.
Nothing's free.
Ryan, thanks for joining us, buddy. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Dubai's here. NFT, yes, NFT.
We got quite a few like, yes, please, NFT. What is NFT? So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so what I would say is if I don't think we're going to start from scratch and kind of get everybody on board of what this NFT is. But non-fungible token, I would take a look at it. It's really interesting. Basically combining art with the crypto space, and there's so much going on, including Beeple's giant drop. He's got the Christie's auction going on, and tons of artists. I'll just say one quick thing about this NFT thing, and we may get into it in another video. But I just wanted to say, for the artists out there, I just love seeing all this art in this space. There are amazing artists in this 3D world, and we've happened to be able to meet so many of you and work with many of you and see you at the NAB and other shows. And the fact that you guys are now a part of this giant movement into crypto art, into NFT, and it makes me happy to see all of these artists get paid, first of all, for what they do. I think they're incredibly beautiful work, and they should be getting paid for this. It's amazing value. And second of all, the fact that there's more than just one place to go do this 3D work for a living, right? And the more that the opportunities open up to all of us as 3D artists, the more the more options we have, frankly, and that's just more options is better for artists. So I don't know, Chad, what have you been seeing with this NFT space?
I went down the rabbit hole so deep. I only understand maybe like half of it, to be completely honest, because it is overwhelming, especially because I never even did anything crypto related until like a month ago. So it's definitely been a journey of learning and watching and listening. And Clubhouse has been a huge help, which is this app on iOS that is sort of like this new it's like a new social network where you can like go on to these chat rooms and people just start these rooms up and you can just go and listen. There's no video, it's just all audio. And I just started following NFT stuff in there and just joining these rooms and listening and just like soaking it all in. But if you're completely like, if you have no idea what we're talking about, School of Motion has a really good article called "What is Crypto Art and Why Should I Care?" or "Why Should Motion Designers Care?" You should go check that out because it does a far better job than I could of explaining the details of NFT and like all this stuff. But bottom line is, I agree, Nick. It's like it's an incredible thing happening right now. It's a bit crazy now. I think it'll slow down, it'll settle down a little bit. But right now, what we're seeing is artists, digital artists, with this ability to apply scarcity to their work and track the sale of that work. Like in the traditional art world, if I bought a painting and I resold, like a famous painting, and I resold it after 20 years or something, the artist that made that painting isn't going to get any of that cash. But with NFTs, you can get royalties in perpetuity. So if I made that as an NFT, let's say, and that artist gets paid when they sell it, if I sell it in 10 years to somebody else, they get a percentage of that, which is fantastic. And it's just so artist friendly. Well, not friendly in terms of the tech. That's still really weird and kind of hard to figure out. But the idea of the artist being able to get paid for their creative, but still maintain the rights to their creative, like they could still go and use that artwork however they want. It's just a really cool thing. But yeah, it's blowing up right now. Everybody's talking about it. And I'm sure if we get enough people wanting to do another show entirely about it, we can do that. But yeah, I hope that helps answer some questions. There's all these marketplaces that people are selling their stuff on. And I was explaining it to a friend of mine. I was like, imagine Etsy, but like if Etsy was like a high-end gallery and there were like 10 Etsys, that did that. And because there's all these different marketplaces and some of them are easier to get into than others for artists. And some of them have really insane long wait times and some of them are very popular. Like I'm on Foundation, which I got an invite from Kid Mograph, but there's other ones that are a little bit more exclusive, like Nifty and Super Rare and things like that. But anyway, so yeah, I don't want to hijack this whole thing into NFTs, but I feel like we should talk about it because it's on everybody's mind. So I feel like that's fine.
Yeah, let us know in the comments here, and also if you're watching this after the recording, let us know if you want to hear more about it. We could even try to bring some people that know even more about it than we do onto the show. Maybe try to explain the stuff. Like I said, I think it's an amazing thing. If it's interesting to you, go read the School of Motion article. There's quite a few great articles out there. Justin Cohn also has a really good kind of primer that he's had around for quite a few months now. He wrote that a while ago, and he keeps it updated, and it's really good on some of the good stuff and some of the bad stuff too about this NFT and some of the power consumption, stuff like that. So definitely go check it out. Let's see here. Let's move on. Get a couple questions ready, and then we'll dive into cameras and how to make how to use cameras to make more beautiful renders in Cinema 4D. Have we done a podcast episode on NFTs? Oh, I misclicked it. I'll answer this question too. They're using cameras. That's good. NFT show, please. Thank you guys. Thanks for voting. Awesome show about NFT. Okay, cool. We'll think about that for maybe next week, a couple weeks. Stay tuned. And if you're interested in it, hop on Clubhouse as well. There's been an NFT room, I feel like at least once a day, somebody's in there talking about it. And there's been some amazing shows from Cinema 40, led by amazing Cinema 40 artists right on Clubhouse that have been just really great to learn from, see what all the possibilities are with all this. All right, let's put the NFT in the box now. I'm gonna put it in the box. Here we go. Let's put it on the side. We're gonna be talking about Cinema 4D because you know what? Whether you're making NFTs, whether you're making commercials, whether you're making Instagram art, whether you're making something beautiful for your mom, it doesn't matter. You need cameras, you need lights, you need materials, and we're here to talk about that today. So let's get into it. First of all, let's start with any questions you guys have. Specifically, if it's about how cameras, lighting, and composition, and how to create beautiful work in Cinema 4D. It's what we're here to talk about today. Let us know your questions, and let's answer a few kind of just face-to-face questions. And then in just a bit, we're going to dive into Cinema 4D, and we're going to show you exactly how we use cameras in Cinema 4D and some of the things, little tips, little tricks, and help you understand how much cameras matter. All right. Here's a quick one. Don't go too far. Travis, good question, says, should we do depth of field in the renderer or in compositing? Chad, you want to take this one?
Let's see. Depth of field in render or compositing? I haven't done depth of field in compositing in probably a year and a half, maybe ish. But don't take that as saying like, oh, I'm just going to do it all on camera, because a lot of times, like, you have to remember, like, I'm not doing a ton of client work. In fact, I only have one client, and that client is Greyscalegorilla. So for me, I know what I want, and I kind of can just do it all on camera. But if you're working on a job, let's say, and the render times are ridiculous, and you don't want to bake the depth of field in case the client's like, oh, we want to pull the focus back a little bit further here, or we want it to go farther there, you're gonna have to re-render that entire shot. So it's really about knowing what you're in for. So if you can do it in camera and you don't think there's going to be any changes, tweaks in post, in regards to the depth of field, and it looks pretty and it's working for you, cool. If you're doing it for your own artwork and it just looks great and you don't think you're going to change your mind afterwards, do it all in camera. And if you have GPU rendering, obviously that makes a huge difference too. I'm kind of speaking as if you have it. I'm just assuming that. Maybe you don't, and in which case you probably want to do it in post. But doing it in the comp is tricky. You just have to have a plugin. It's called I'm gonna butcher this name every damn time I say it. Lens Care Frischluft. Everybody's gonna yell at me now.
That was about right.
Anyway, I'm rough. But yeah, I use that when I'm doing that sort of thing. In fact, I think I have an old tutorial showing how to use it in After Effects on some coffee beans. So that's you can do it that way too. I kind of just prefer, because I'm getting a little lazy in my old age, and I kind of just do it all on camera now. But like I said, if you're working on multiple shots and you are not sure about that depth of field, where it's going to go, if client's going to dig it, then yeah, go ahead and do it in comp.
Yeah, I'll just add that when I was using physical render exclusively, depth of field was almost impossible to do in any reasonable amount of time, especially for animation. So you had to do it in compositing at that point, because the render hit was so crazy. It was like, hours per frame to clean up the depth of field. However, a lot of these third-party renders, pretty much all of them, are way faster with depth of field, and allows you to maybe take a 3, 4, 5x hit to make some really beautiful depth of field. And so as long as you factor that into your render time, I would say if you could do it in camera, if you could do it in your render, and you don't think it's going to change drastically in the comp, I would recommend doing it there as well. I think there's a quick question here from Stacio. Says, how do I get the area lights on a light in Octane? So we just released a series of videos all about how to use HDRI link for all of the major renderers, including Physical, Octane, Arnold, and Redshift. So just search YouTube for getting started with HDRI link, and you'll find the one that is on using Octane. And it's the same setup. You just use area light maps instead of an HDRI, and you're all set to go. So that video should get you there. What is the actual parameter, Chad, that they drag into HDRI link in Octane to
I think it's
to
just
do that?
I think it's just the texture. Let me just make one so I make sure I don't screw it up. Yeah, you're gonna grab the texture parameter. It's right there if you hit the area light tag, the Octane area light tag.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks for the question. Let's do a few more here, and then we'll jump into cinema. Let's see here. Anamorphic.
There's a tilt shift question.
Yeah, I think
I'll take that. I'll take that one.
Below this one. This one here. Tilt shift lens effects, distortion, and cinema 4D.
Somebody asked. So, yeah. So the tilt shift is a really cool thing to have, and feel free if anybody knows, they can correct me. But of the major 3 renderers that I use, Octane, Arnold, and Redshift, Arnold is the only one that I've seen that has like tilt shift effects. I could be wrong. I haven't looked in Octane. I've just started using Octane heavily again. But it is a really cool effect to be able to kind of move, and I'm not gonna be able to show that today because if I switch from one GPU renderer to another, I have to restart Cinema because otherwise there's like GPU issues, it crashes, it does weird shit. So, but if you're interested in seeing that, maybe hit me again on another one of these and I'll make a file and we can like talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you. I saw this question as well. I think we had a pretty quick answer for this one. Easiest way to get rid of fireflies and Octane. I'm actually going to move over to Octane as well, just to make sure I got the right setting. But for me, and I learned this in the David Arieff Octane course that's on Greyscalegorilla Plus. I actually went through that entire piece of training when David put it on Plus because I was learning Octane at the same time. And I learned a lot of these tips and tricks on how to clean up your renderer. And this one I remember really specifically, it's the GI clamp. So GI clamp by default, I think it's set to 100. And
it's higher than that even.
Might be thousands or,
yeah.
Oh, you're right. It's like cranked up. And something David basically said, who knows why it is that high by default, but it almost always adds too many little fireflies. It kind of overworks itself. It's slower. And he's like, instantly, let's move this down to 1. And he's like, from wherever it was, hundreds or millions or whatever it was, just move it to 1, and instantly your fireflies will be way, way less. So I would recommend try that first to try to get rid of those little hot spots and fireflies.
You can also hop into the camera imager and turn down the hot pixel removal to like 0.8 or 0.9. That helps too if you have like an HDRI that's giving you those issues. But yeah, both of those two things will help a lot.
Awesome. Larry's got a similar question. Same question as depth of field, but motion blur. What about motion blur, Chad? Are you doing that in comp or in camera in the renderer?
Same situation. Although if I'm, it's tricky to kind of do the post motion blur. It's tricky to do post depth of field on something that has motion blur baked into it. So if I'm going to do those two things in post, I'm never doing one without the other. I'm either doing both depth of field and motion blur in engine, or I'm doing them both in post. And it's really just kind of up to like the same stuff I mentioned earlier about like, do you have, clients, are they going to change their mind, all that sort of thing. If you're just making art and you're liking the way it looks and you can live with the render times and it's not killing you too bad, then I just kind of do it in camera because I'm lazy. So
I've been doing it in camera too. That's my default. I think I'm seeing the other tilt shift question. So thank you, EMVF, for that tilt shift question as well. Hopefully we answered that one for you. Or I think we'll maybe try to show you in another video some other time. Jay, thanks for the shout out. HDRI link with Octane is my jam. It is fun with Octane, especially because Octane renders so quick. Kind of set HDRI link to preview mode, and you could like click your lights like almost this fast and see completely new lighting. until it's like, that's what I want. A little rotate and done. We may have to do that a little bit later
Yeah,
today.
I've been using Octane a lot more lately, and I think it's freaking people out. I think they're like, they don't
Why is
believe.
Chad using Octane?
Well, what's happening?
You just wait till everyone's, like heart is broken that you don't use Octane, and then you show up and boom.
I know how to do it, man. I know how to like
play in the
play with
crowd.
emotions,
More tilt shift questions. You could fake tilt shift. Yeah, that might be a good idea. Fake it in post a little. It's not super easy unless you have a lot of stuff on the same plane.
Yeah, I mean, it is a cool effect, and it's very useful for product stuff, and maybe that's something that we could maybe do, like a product video where we just talk about product shots or something if people are into it.
Yeah, I want to quickly address this question, and I want to say something about just kind of cameras, tilt shift, all these kind of things in general. So I'm going to try not to forget it. But Mohammed had a question: any way to get rid of dancing noise in physical render with GI and ambient occlusion? Are area shadows the culprit? So with physical render, the issue is almost always using any type of global illumination other than QMC. And all of the other global illumination settings are there to kind of speed up and cheat GI in a way. And for stills, it actually works really, really well. For animation, though, because it's doing little cheats, every frame is kind of is lit in a slightly different way, and it adds to all this noise. It adds to splotchiness, and so what I would always recommend if you're doing animation with physical render is, first of all, get a lot of coffee. It's going to take a while. Second of all, use QMC for all of your bounces for global illumination. And in fact, if you have HDRI Studio Rig, HDRI Studio Rig is kind of like HDRI Link, but built explicitly for physical render. And we have render settings built right into HDRI Studio Rig that set up global illumination render settings and let you basically pick high, medium, and low. And as you go up the chain, it's less and less grainy, and it will also get rid of all the splotchiness, and those settings are all set up ready to go. But basically, the real secret is using QMC. And then it's just a matter of how much time you have and how much noise you're willing to accept long-term. But give that one a shot. And even if you don't have HDRI Studio Rig, check out those videos. I actually show you some of the QMC settings on some of our training as well. And I think it's out on YouTube. All right. So real quick about some of these things we're talking about. We're going to be talking about a lot of camera stuff today. Tilt shift was already mentioned. We got depth of field. We got millimeters on lenses. We're probably going to say f-stop. We're probably going to say aspect ratio. And what I would recommend is, if you have any of those questions, if there's a term that you're like, I haven't heard of that, or what is that, you can go learn it when it comes to Cinema 4D. But what I would rather you go do is learn about cameras. Go find a book. Do people read books? Oh my gosh, a magazine.
I think you mentioned you said the word magazine in the last show.
Oh my God, I'm so old. Okay, so find some text or YouTube videos of choice, but try to learn it through the actual lens of a real camera. Your iPhone has a lot of these settings, especially iPhone apps that let you change manually your settings, and learn these things with a real camera. It will help so much when you have a real camera in front of you and you can check these settings. If you guys have a Canon digital SLR or a Nikon and you have access to learn this stuff kind of physically, I would recommend learning it there. And then everything you learn will transfer almost 100% into Cinema 4D, no matter what renderer you use. They all use these terms, and they all use similar settings to let you dial in the same stuff that a physical camera would have, and like a not physical render camera, a real physical camera. So just a little setup for what we're about to do, talk about cameras. And if there's any jargon, definitely shout it out in the chat. Maybe somebody in the chat can help you out and tell you what it is, and I'll keep an eye on it. But if you're brand new and you haven't learned the fundamentals of photography, even with an iPhone, I would recommend, if you're a 3D artist, absolutely start there.
Yes, for sure.
And it's why in so many of the videos that we create, in all of the training, almost every tutorial that I've made over the years, I always show you my camera settings. I always show you what lens I'm picking, and we always try to talk about why we're picking a certain lens, because different cameras and different angles create different looks, along with lighting and materials and everything else. Banana cam, right? Ever since I made the iPhone apps, guys. Travis with the banana cam shout out.
Oh,
Thanks.
deep cut.
Deep cut. Thanks, man. iPhone. Who still uses Shake It Photo? Anybody? Anybody? All right. All right. Focus distance. So we got some questions we'll actually probably bring into Cinema 4D. Be some recommendations about focus distance depending on the scene type. Absolutely. Like how far away your camera is, where you put your camera, all that stuff. We'll be talking a little bit about all of that. What is banana cam? Yeah, that's another day. That'll be another day, another story. Banana camera company. All right. Recommendations, focus distance, Filmic Pro, medium format look with the camera in Cinema 4D. That's interesting. So the first thing we'll do is let's talk about aspect ratio. Chad, I'll leave it up to you. If you have a perfect demo and you are like, let me add it, let's just go to my screen and I'll show it. You tell me any moment and we'll hook you up and we'll let you drive. But let's talk about it until we have something to show. This is a good example to talk about aspect ratio. So Sid is asking about medium format camera. So it's, let's start with the film that you put in a camera. Let's go way back. So when there's 16 millimeter film that's, you know, this big, and 35 millimeter film that's this big, there's also a format called medium format, which I forget the actual millimeters, but it's closer to like 2 inches wide, big old piece of film. And so what does that do? Well, that needs a larger lens to capture the light enough to hit this larger piece of film. And it also lets you experiment with different aspect ratios. So we all know you go to the movies, or lately nobody's going to the movies. Everyone's looking at their TV. And some movies have a ton of black bars on the top and bottom, and you got this really thin little sliver of film. And some fill your TV perfectly in a 16:9 format. And some, if you even go way back, are 4:3. And now you got bars on the side, or they stretch it out and make friends look like you got fat friends at that point. You know what I mean?
Yep. So
what does all this mean, and how do we pick the aspect ratio? Well, the first thing is if you're doing client work, more than likely they're going to tell you what the final output is going to be. This is going to be square, or it's going to be 16:9, or it's going to be even tall for an animated phone thing. A lot of phone aspect ratios are going to be vertical instead of horizontal. But Chad, anything else we need to talk about when it comes to aspect ratio, and maybe the creative side of what aspect ratio to choose when you're choosing your camera and your render settings?
Well, the best part about doing 3D is that it's all arbitrary, right? Like there is no film, it doesn't exist. Like it's just a simulation of those things, right? So the thing that you can kind of just do whatever you want, right? And that's the problem almost, really, is when you can do anything you want and it's not really grounded in a true if it's not grounded in reality. Like if you're trying to use some crazy lens on a crazy aspect ratio that you could never shoot, it's going to look not real. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what you want, is to make it not look real. And that's totally fine. If that's your artistic vision, go for it. But there really isn't any limitations to what you can achieve in terms of like using the skinniest aspect ratio, the widest, whatever. What I try to do is make my stuff look as filmic as possible. So I try to follow the rules that I would have if I were shooting on set or shooting it for real. And I find that gives my work a little bit more of a cinematic look and a bit more of a photographic style, if you will, because I'm always working in real scale. I'm always using prime lenses, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And that's just kind of how I work. That's what I like to do, because I secretly wish I was a DP in another life. I was a director of photography somewhere. So that's kind of how I approach it. So even when I'm doing a square aspect ratio or a portrait aspect ratio, I'm still using a prime lens, and I'm adjusting the lens in Cinema 4D to maintain the same field of view as if I was shooting on a regular format. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at this point, it might be better if we jump into cinema, because we have a few questions I think we could do, kind of like show you in the app, be a little bit more visual with this. We got Oizo. Yeah. Let's go with that. It's asking is exposure a thing in Cinema 4D? Absolutely. I know Chad is.
Can you throw that question up there? What is he saying?
Yeah, it's just asking about exposure.
Oh, is exposure time a thing? Yeah, I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna go through a scene that I made in Redshift where I rigged up with Espresso a completely physical camera that will help explain the exposure triangle and all that jazz. But yeah, but before we jump into that, let me share my screen.
Yeah, so I'm going to write these down and make sure we don't forget them. So we're going to talk about exposure. We're going to talk about aspect ratio. And then we also have a question about prime lenses, like a 50 millimeter, and going to show you how to choose what the correct lens for your scene in Cinema 4D. So I know Chad has a few scene files we're going to show you. But let's pull up Chad's screen. Who's ready? Let me get rid of some of these extra little bits on the screen here. And let's go.
So it should be showing this website. Is that working for you?
Yeah, it's looking good.
Okay, cool. So this is a website called Film Grab, and they take really great screenshots of just like many films of many genres. And I use this as a study guide. I use this to look at position of the camera, lensing, composition, and I'm just like studying these cinematographers from these great films. And you can actually browse by director if you want to do that. In fact, it's a lot of films they have in here. But for this, I'm just going to go back to the home page, and we can actually hit random post if we want. So just by hitting random post and looking at this shot, this is obviously a very long lens. The face is very compacted, and it's a beautiful shot. And this is looks like it's from the movie. Let's see if it'll tell me. Byzantium. I never saw that one, but I recommend studying cinematography. You don't have to get fully into it. You don't have to go crazy down the rabbit hole, but just going to a site like this and trying to find something that sort of matches the piece that you're working on, it can really inform your choices, and you'll start thinking in a more cinematic kind of way, both compositionally and lens choices. So when you're on set shooting a film, most DPs are going to be shooting with a set of prime lenses. So Panavision Primo prime lenses are kind of the de facto standard, and they come in very specific fixed focal lengths. You can see here, you've got them all kind of listed down here. So one of the things I like to do is I like to work and pretend that I have a set of prime Primo lenses in Cinema 4D. And you can do that a couple different ways. You can come in here and look at the focal length and try to, it's 100 millimeter, 50 millimeter, 85, all those things. And you can just kind of remember to plug them into Cinema 4D. And you can do that pretty easily. Let's just jump into this one. And you can do that right here in the camera, go to focal length and change it to a 50 mil, or change it to 100 mil, or change it to maybe a 14, which is going to be very wide. And you start to understand okay, I need to start choosing lenses as if I was a DP on set. And once I started doing this more and more, I developed a set of really super simple pipes that are basically a set of Primo lenses. I've got a 17, a 24, 29, 35, 40, 50, 75, and 100 mil. And I'm almost always using one of these. when I'm working. Now, you don't have to do that. You can work in between. I just kind of got into this habit, forcing myself to use a fixed focal length matching a prime lens, just to try to get my stuff to look a little bit more cinematic. And you can do the same thing. But the thing that you need to remember, though, is the focal length in Cinema 4D is based off the field of view horizontal. So if we take, let's say, a 50 millimeter lens on this statue's face, and we decide we want to shoot this, this needs to be a square crop. It's going to go to Instagram or something. So if we change our settings to now 1280 by 1280, you can see the lens kind of changed. It's no longer a real 50 millimeter lens. And even if I were to type in 50 millimeter lens, it's the same thing. It's not going to change. But this isn't a true 50 millimeter lens because it's actually based on the horizontal field of view. So the way that you want to do this the correct way, let me go back to let me actually go back to, so it'll be easier to understand, go back to where we were. And make sure we're having a 50 here. Cool. So let's go ahead and hit 50. Now I'm going to take this field of view horizontal and I'm going to copy it. Hit Control C or Apple C if you're on a Mac. Now we're going to change our aspect ratio to a square. And I'm going to paste that number that I had in there before right there. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. I think I did the wrong one. Damn it. All right, stand by. Not a problem.
You copied
video.
You copied when you should have pasted, Chad.
No, I just copied the wrong one. All right, we got to get the vertical. My bad. I apologize. Live video. Let's get this back to normal. Okay, so now we're going to paste this back in. Now we're in a 50 millimeter, and you may be working that way. You might be saying, like, I changed from a wide aspect ratio to a square, but it doesn't quite look right. What happened? Like, my lensing looks weird to me, and that's why. So remember to copy and paste that field of view, and you'll fix that. Now, these scripts that I made kind of do the math for me, so that's probably why I got it wrong, is because I've just like become so accustomed to like hitting my little buttons here. And if you're a Greyscalegorilla Plus member, and you really want these scripts, let me know and hit us up in the comments or hit us over on the GSG Connect Slack, and we'll try to see if we can get these scripts into your hands.
I want those.
I know, they're really nice. I've become so dependent on. I even made like a little, a nice little script that like gets rid of the letterboxing and like turns it back on.
Oh, I need those. I do that all the time.
I know
I do it the hard way.
Yeah, I kind of did it so much that I was like, I got to just make something because this is stupid. Anyway, okay. So
thank you guys for saying that too, by the way. So we'll Chad and I will talk after the show. We'll try to figure out how to get this to the Plus members.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we should talk about really when we're choosing focal lengths is the compression of the image and when it's appropriate, when you want to use that kind of compression, and when you don't. And there's actually, I'm going to bring up this website that's actually a fantastic, it's a fantastic like little demonstration of the effect that a lens choice can have on the subject. And it's a blog. I'm not going to try to pronounce this person's last name. Dan Wojtek, I believe, is the name. And what he did is he shot himself with a bunch of different lenses to just kind of like look at the effect of what happens when you're using a wide angle lens and then sort of like using a longer and longer and longer and longer lens. And by the way, when I say like a short lens, a long lens, it generally means like a short lens is going to be wide and a long lens is going to be very tight. So as it climbs up here, you can kind of see like at the very beginning, a 20 millimeter lens. Let's just kind of zoom in on this 20 mil face right here. So starting here with this 20 mil face, you can see the face is kind of like bowed out. The nose feels kind of elongated and large, and the shoulders kind of like almost, you can see like a little bit of distortion here, and it just doesn't look super attractive. Now it's very useful in some certain scenarios, like if you're like shooting action and you need to get like a lot of stuff in the shot, or you want to make something look very large. That's why like skaters are using like fisheye lenses, is because they want to get more of the action, but they also want the whole thing to seem bigger and more like epic. Plus, if you're right there on the action, if the skater is like right behind the guy, then you can't really use a long lens because, you know, how can you track that action? Anyway, so as he kind of raises the flare and just like steps up the lenses here, check out the difference between a 20 mil and a 70 mil. Now, the 20 mil looks comical because it's sort of like its features, and the 70 mil is flattening out his features and looks way more attractive. So, and the 200 mil is even, you know, it's flattening them out even more. So it's just kind of like, there's not a huge difference between the 70 and the 200 at this point. But that's why most, you know, portrait photography is going to be done on a longer lens, probably somewhere in the 50 to 200 mil range, depending on the vision of the photographer or the cinematographer. The 35 mil is closest to the human eye, which is why cinema's default camera, if I just make a default camera here, let me grab a new scene. If I make a default camera here, it's going to be a 36, which is about as close to the human eye as you can get. So if you're using a default focal length, stop. Stop doing that. Like make a choice, make a creative choice. Like, what are you doing? What are you showing?
Don't let the software choose for you.
No,
you are the director. You are in charge. You pick the lens.
Because I guarantee that every director on that you can see on Film Grab here, every DP made a choice for a specific reason, and you need to do the same thing because you're no different. You're a virtual DP, and you've got your camera. You can pick your lens. The beauty is that you don't have to rent these expensive lenses; that you get them all for free, so you can just do whatever you want, have a blast. But I do want to show just that same effect, like we were showing that effect of that artist that had the blog post. And I just want to do the same thing. We're going to go all the way to 100 mil in this camera here. Let's see. I think I'm already at 100 mil. Yep. All right. So we're going to push into this face, and we're just going to step down our lenses so you can see that distortion happening in real time. So I'm going down to 35, 29, 24, 17. Now, if I zoom in on that 17, it's pretty damn close to I think his name is Dan. Let's get back over to that. It's pretty damn close to his 20. Very similar effect. So it's just making choices, making cinematic choices for your
Chad,
work.
real quickly, zoom back in there, frame that dude up full face, like the regular headshot. Yeah. And then duplicate your cam and make like 100 or like 150 or something like that. And try to frame it up kind of similar. Yeah. Okay, now check this out. Just jump between the two cameras and you'll instantly see what's happening. So what do we got here? So first of all, his nose, right, is sticking out. Things closer to the camera look way closer. Things further away from the camera look way further away. And even when we click on the other one, like the back of his hair isn't even visible in the close-up because the camera is so pushed in. We got to get this wide angle lens way up in his nose versus a zoomed in lens that we could walk back and zoom in to capture the same kind of framing. So it really is about where the camera is in the scene. So this automatically feels very intense. It's literally in your face. It feels very cartoonish. It feels a little invasive, like you're like angry. Maybe you're getting into a fight with this person versus you go back to this other lens. All right, we're at a safe distance here. This is not a threat. You know, we're shooting a regular film here. So what you'll see in movies is they'll use these lenses to bring an emotion out of the viewer, and they'll pick the specific lenses to bring certain emotions out of you. And the more you learn about that, the more you learn how cinematographers and filmmakers use these lenses to push your emotional buttons, the more that you can use the same language in your own work. And that's really what's cool about this site. I've never actually been in this site. It's really cool. I've got to go here. Film-grab. Try to make a note for that one. Ian asks a quick question. Raised in Arizona. I just need to watch that. Anytime I think about the movie, I got to go watch it. Okay. Chad and Nick, we got a quick question here. Oh my God.
So
I love
here's
that.
a wide angle.
Yep. Wide angle you got. So how do we know it's a wide angle? Go back to that really quick, Chad. If you could quickly find
Or
it.
the one.
That's a great one. Okay. So how do we know that this is a wide angle? Well, first of all, his hands are twice as big as his face. Okay. Or bigger than his face, I'll say. And whenever you have things that should be the same size or similar size, but they're drastically exaggerated, you're going to start to know that that's a wider angle lens, because things that are closer to the lens are exaggerated. Versus if you're further away, the percentage of the distance between where the lens is and where the subject is kind of goes away. And so the more you see distortion in scale, the more you're going to think that this is a wide angle lens, and the more that you're going to want to do the same type of thing for your render.
Yeah, the other thing to remember too on this particular shot is like they're working with the physical restraints of a real camera. So if they're putting that camera on the ground to get the baby's point of view, they're not going to like go. I mean, maybe this is shot on a soundstage and they could raise the entire room so that they could put the camera below ground level. But I'm going to guess that they had to put the camera on the actual ground. So the only way they were going to get Nicolas Cage and the bed and, you know, his hands in the shot was to use a wide lens. And plus, it adds to the baby POV. It adds to that, like, oh, I'm looking through the point of view of someone.
Yeah, Joel
Anyway.
Joel also says straight lines are curved also with wide angle lenses. That's true, not all the time, but especially with fisheye effects, you're going to see more distortion in straight lines. That is, anytime you see distortion, it's just always a good guess that it's going to be a wider and wider angle lens. The more distortion there is in the scene, so that's a good one to look at that.
And you should definitely add distortion in post when possible.
Yeah,
if you're using a wide angle lens in 3D.
I'll add another thing that you touched on, Chad, which was an unlock for me, which was thinking of the scale of the camera and where you would put a camera if the object you're trying to
wrong movie.
Chad, is a live show, buddy.
I know. Sorry, dude. I just searched for wide and it should Eyes Wide Shut. Sorry about that.
So thinking about where a camera would physically go if you're trying to shoot an object. So actually, Chad, if you want to find a few more examples, I'm going to try to switch to my screen real fast.
Okay.
Hopefully this works. Let me see. Share screen. I'm going to share, click, and then I'm going to swipe. Zoink. All right. I'm assuming you see some Octane here.
I still see my screen. Maybe I need to stop sharing.
Oh, I think you're right. Boink. Boink. Oh, I got to go full screen. Boink. All right. Friends, we got a similar kind of statue type of thing here. Chad, can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, so I just want to bring up one extra point that Chad was touching on, which is where you put your camera makes your objects feel a different scale. Now, I'm not going to change the actual scale on my scene at all. I'm not going to make this object bigger or smaller. All I'm going to do is use a different camera. And so what I want you guys to think about is what roughly size this feels like from up here. Chad, I don't have access to the comments, but what I want you guys to guess is how big this object is that I'm taking a photo of. And just give me like inches or millimeters or whatever. How big do you think this object is in your head? How is your eyeballs telling you the scale and size of this object? Do we have any guesses in the chat, Chad?
I'm watching. Nothing's come through yet. I mean, without any sort of like reference, like there's no other detail. It's on a background. It's kind of hard to say. If I were going to guess, I would say it's about 1.5 feet tall.
1.5 feet tall. That feels good. Like a bust statue, maybe on a
because you know that
table
you're
or
used
something
to
like
seeing. Yeah, that's probably it.
Okay.
Somebody said 1 base cube. Somebody else says 73 meters. 0.05 centimeters, 12 inches.
12 inches. So we got a couple guesses that are like around a foot. Maybe it's like a statue size. Maybe it's like, you know, something you maybe could mold with your fingers or something like that. Now, I just want to jump to another camera angle. And this camera angle instantly, at least to my eye, makes this look way larger. So now if I actually set this scene up, maybe, and again, you're right, reference actually helps. If this was a tree instead of a sphere, this would make it look a lot taller. I'm actually going to remove the sphere just so we have an even playing field. This now feels to me that this could be like in a garden at an art museum, and it might be more like 6 feet tall, right? And why is that? Well, that's because the camera is way down low, and usually when there are photos taken of objects, they're roughly 6 feet off the ground. Why is that? Because humans are roughly 5 or 6 feet tall. And so if you just if your brain just gets just looks at something naturally, what it's gonna say is this camera is probably gonna be like 6 feet off the ground, which means the rest of what is above it, because clearly like the beard and above is above the camera line. Your brain is going to trick you into thinking that this is at least 6 feet tall, maybe from here up. And this gets more and more drastic the closer we get to something, right? The more we move a camera up. Versus when we zoom in and we move away from something, it's going to look a lot more further away. This is really shown with something really simple like, I'll just do one quick thing here, which is like a city type of situation. So if only somebody made a really quick city plugin. Huh. Let me see here. I could do this real quick. And the Y, let's go Y 300. Let's go maybe a little bit bigger. So we'll do 100. All right, then we'll go 600. All right, pretty dumb example, but we have our kind of crappy city here. I'm going to do one more quick thing and just
wait. Screenshot NFT.
Is this my first NFT? Are we making it?
Screenshot that.
All right. Well, somebody else could screenshot it. Just give me 10%. It's fine. All right. So we have our little city here. I'm going to get rid of our guy, our little bearded man. Okay. So let's do the same thing, but just with a bunch of cubes. Now, all I'm going to do is move the camera above the floor and set it right here on the ground. And I thought I got rid of that beard man. And now what we have is looking up at all of these buildings, right? And they're literally unshaded cubes. And now what do we have? We have like tall, lines going up in the air. We're down on the ground. We're looking at these buildings as if we're just somebody sitting on the ground. And of course, we're using a wide angle lens because to get any of these buildings in the scene, you have to have a wide angle lens. In this case, I'm using a 22 millimeter. I'm gonna follow Chad's rules and do a 20. And now we have the ability to put almost this whole building in the frame. So now what if we did 100 millimeter sitting on the ground? Well, there's not a lot we can actually do because, man, 100 millimeters is such a long lens. If I'm sitting on the ground, I can't really frame up anything. There's really no context here. So what do we do when we need to zoom in or when we need to show something else? Well, we zoom up in the air. So I'll just do the opposite one more time. 20 millimeters up in the air. We got to zoom way in and look at what this looks like with a 20 millimeter lens. To me, this looks more like a model of a city, right? Even if we fill the frame, because of the way the angle is, it doesn't feel like a natural city scene because we're using the wrong lens. When you're way up in the air and you need to show something, you actually zoom in, right? All the helicopters got a zoom lens, and now they zoom in and everything flattens out, and now you have this top-down city look from way up above. And so these little subtle differences, let's see how straight all the lines are and see how the building back here is about the same size as a building up here, versus when we do a 20 millimeter lens and zoom in, now we got all this distortion. This building's way bigger than this one. And this isn't how, this isn't how cities are filmed in this way. So that's just a quick example with just some plain cubes on how drastically you could take the same shape. We didn't scale anything down. All we did was change the lens, and we got drastically different results. All right, let's get back to here. All right, so let's go through what we talked about today. We're gonna jump in, maybe do one more scene file, Chad. I think you had one more. You wanted to do the exposure one, right?
Yeah, talk about depth of field, f-stops, all that stuff.
Okay, so
and a pet peeve of mine.
Oh my gosh, it's a great one. So we'll jump in there. Chad, get that one ready. I'm gonna look at the quote or the questions here. Yeah, Adam, says makes a lot of sense. It basically learned. It's learned our perception is influenced by our expectations. So the reason this happens is about human psychology, right? So there's a couple things happening in everyone's brain that we can just assume is happening, which is we have, years and years and years of evolution of how things are perceived, how things that look far away look, how things that are close to us look, the focus of our eyes and how far away things seem, the things we learn as a child, which is what things are behind other things because of the scale of them and even the color of them. On top of that, which might be even more important and something that you can leverage as an artist, is cinematography and the art of filmmaking, which is why Chad brought up that website. We have learned from cartoons, from movies, from everything we've watched since we were a kid, how the language of film should make us feel. And when you put something dark and backlit and make the shadows really dark and add this type of music to it, well, we have expectations built into what that means. And you can pull those levers as an artist and put those things together to create the emotion that you want in your viewer. Same thing if you want it to be a product shot or something more flatly lit and fun and cartoony, you might want to choose more of a zoomed in lens because that makes things feel small and precious, right? If you're filming a diamond or a toy or a little vinyl toy, you're going to choose a zoomed in lens and get way in there and get all the details. If you want things to look wacky and like a skateboard video and like a Gatorade commercial or like, you're literally right under the basketball player as he's dunking a basketball, you might choose something more like a wide angle lens and place it low and look up at the hero of the shot, right? So this stuff is hard to teach, obviously, in like a 1 hour live show, but hopefully parts of this make you go on the journey of learning about cinematography and the art of film. Because if you get that bug, it's going to make every render you make even better. I was lucky enough to know photography before I started learning 3D, and so much of that stuff helped me early on. Chad was a huge part of that, reminding me that I knew the fundamentals of photography, and if only I could bring that into my renders and think about my render as a photographer, that my work would be better. And instantly it was, not only with my cameras and my lenses, but with my lighting, my framing, and the story I was ready to tell. All of that transfers in. Okay, so the rant over on that one.
Yes.
Chad.
Yes.
Chad, what do you think? We can maybe hop in and talk about exposure, depth of field, and then maybe answer a few questions and wrap this puppy up.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about. We've kind of it's a lot, so we could have gone on a hour tangent on any of these things, really. But yeah, I want to talk about the exposure triangle, which, for the most part, only parts of it matter to us as 3D artists, because obviously we're not exposing film. We don't have to worry about balancing that exposure triangle because we're in CG and we can just kind of make it look however we want. But it's important to know those rules because that's going to inform some choices that you're going to have to make as an artist. And if you don't know these rules, then you're going to be just eyeballing it. And if you don't know, if you're just not sure, this is going to help you a lot. So I'm going to share my screen, and you let me know when this pops up.
I will. I'm going to throw this question up too and quickly answer it because I think it's an interesting one. Your screen is live.
All right.
And I'm going to make you full screen here. Kristen asked a quick question. If you wanted to animate the vertigo effect, which popular effect, and I actually just saw it in Goodfellas. They have a great scene in the diner where they do this effect. How do you do it? So in Cinema 4D, you would move the camera. You got that part right. So for example, you would start up close and with a wide angle lens and frame your scene. And then you would move the camera back. And as you moved your camera back, you would change the millimeter of your lens to zoom in at the same time. And that will actually give you that vertigo effect right within cinema. So you can totally pull that effect off, or you could do the opposite, start far away with a zoomed in lens, dolly in and open your lens up wider, or go to a wider angle millimeter lens. And you could do that. If you're not familiar with the vertigo effect, literally you could probably Google it and look at
and Jaws too.
Yeah, Jaws has one. Hitchcock did it a lot. I think it's actually from the movie Vertigo, I'm guessing. It's a Hitchcock like staple. Anyway, go learn about it. It's a really fun technique to play with in cinema. So, all right.
You could do it really easily with Signal too. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Oh, just tie up both. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, just tie two things up, and then you can literally just do it with a couple clicks. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about the exposure triangle. All right. So this image is actually from B&H Photo, and we'll throw a link into the description of where this came from. But when you are shooting with actual film in a camera, I know, right? Nobody really does that anymore, but it's important to know how this works. And I'm going to show you why. We're going to talk about this. I'm going to show you like a real demo of it happening in 3D. So in the triangle, you have aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. Now, the aperture is how big the little opening in the camera gets. And the result, as it's showing right here, you can go f32 to f4, which you've probably seen even on some iPhone apps, or maybe you even have a camera and you've looked at that stuff. The result, the difference to the image that it makes is kind of these outside areas of this diagram. So aperture is going to be affecting the depth of field. Things more blurry, things less blurry. So you can see here, an f32, you're not going to have a lot of depth of field. It's going to be very sharp. And then an f1.4, you got lots of bokeh, lots of blurriness happening. And the ISO, now this is one that doesn't really matter for 3D because ISO is like really just about the speed of the film, meaning how sensitive is the film to light. Lots of different kinds of film that you can get. Some of it's more sensitive, some of it's less sensitive. Even your DSLR has an ISO setting which kind of emulates this, and you can tell that it's working when your shit just looks really grainy. It's because your ISO is probably, I believe it would be set to high. Is that correct? Help me out, Nick. You know ISO better than I do.
Yeah, the higher the ISO, the more sensitive it is, and usually more prone to grain. And that was more obvious in the film days. The new digital cameras are so bonkers with the low light sensitivity and algorithms to get rid of grain that it almost disappears. And obviously in Cinema 4D, there's no extra grain when you do it. It's more of a here to they add it into a lot of these programs so that you can match the camera that was used on set, for example, and you can dial in exactly the same settings they had on set and try to match everything.
So if you think about, and I'm going to talk about this third one next. So in 3D terms, think of ISO as just an overall exposure, and think of aperture as going to be your something that you do to get that bokeh effect. I'm using very general terms here, and shutter speed is going to matter for motion blur. Okay, That's what really, to us 3D artists, that's what this triangle really means to us. The shutter speed is pretty obvious. It's like, how long is that shutter open? And obviously, the longer that it's open, the more motion blur you're going to see in your frame. And the tighter the shutter, the less motion blur you're going to see. Now, what I think is interesting is I used to use V-Ray back in the day, and it had a physical camera that helped me sort of understand this triangle a little bit. And I actually was able to create a physical camera in Redshift that does largely the same thing. I'm not going to get into how I did this. It's basically I'm Espresso linking up a lot of different parameters, including the post parameter I'm hooking up all this exposure control stuff that's happening in the post effects in Redshift to my camera. But what I've done is I've linked them all to the Cinema controls, because Cinema has a physical tab under its camera. And you can change the f-stop, the exposure, the ISO, and the shutter speed. Everything that you need for that exposure triangle can be right here. I just happened to link all this stuff behind the scenes so that it would work. So I want to talk a little bit about why this matters and why scale matters. So I'm working in a scene that is to scale, meaning that I'm working in centimeters, and these coffee mugs are about the size of a real coffee mug, and my camera's about as far away as I would put it in real life. And you can see we've got a really nice shot going on, and we got some nice depth of field happening. We don't have any motion blur because I'm using Redshift and its render view. It won't show me the motion blur at this particular time, but I'm going to go ahead and show you some tricks here. So if you're setting up a shot like this, you kind of have to ask yourself, if I was shooting this in real life, what would my f-stop be? If the light was coming in maybe from outside and it's kind of cloudy or something, I'm probably going to be at around maybe an f10 or an f9. I just changed the lens there to a 10. But if you don't know these kind of basic photographic principles, or maybe you don't have any experience in photography, you can usually Google this and say average f-stop for indoor shot, and you'll find something. But if you didn't know this and you're like, well, I just want depth of field, you might end up trying something that looks completely crazy like this. Now, it's all blown out because I'm using this exposure triangle, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But for the demo, for this purpose, I'm just going to like tighten up my I'm just going to bring my ISO down and my shutter speed way up. So you might think like, oh yeah, this looks pretty cool. It's like a macro shot. Well, this isn't what you would normally shoot. Like, that's why it looks so weird, right? It doesn't look right. It looks weird. And the reason it looks weird is because in real life, you wouldn't shoot it like this. In real life, the light in the room is going to be probably fairly bright. So you'd probably be at like an f7. And again, it went really dark because I have a really low ISO. And a typical ISO is probably going to be about 400. So that's like a typical ISO. Now, if I adjust my third level of my exposure triangle, which is the shutter speed, you're going to notice, like, if I make a skinnier shutter, less light is getting in. So this is a really skinny shutter. It's 1/1000th of a second that shutter's open for. So not very much light is coming in. It's very dark as a result. So I'd probably open up that shutter to like maybe, well, not that much. That's like way too wide. But I'm just going to walk my shutter speed down until I get to the point where I like it. And this isn't actually how I would set the shot up. I'll tell you that in a second. So let's just say that this is pretty close. It's maybe I want to bring the ISO up a little bit to get the right exposure that I want. And now all of a sudden it feels more real because we're using an f-stop, and that f-stop is tied directly to the Redshift camera's aperture size. So it's a real thing. It's like you're not faking or guessing the size of that aperture for your bokeh. You're actually using the physical f-stop, which you can do this in Redshift without using my fancy rig. You can just come over to the Redshift tag, and you can, I believe, do this in all the renderers now and say derive from camera, and then you can set that up in the physical cameras tab of your cinema camera. But just knowing what a typical f-stop would be for a shot like this is going to give you way more realistic bokeh, and it's not going to be a guess, and it's going to be based in reality, which is really important. Okay. So typically when I'm setting up a shot like this, if I was going to do it in real life, I would kind of be basing most of it off the motion blur of these falling coffee beans. I would say, well, you know, do I want them motion blurred? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. I'll actually have a fairly long shutter, which is going to like make my entire image blow out because obviously the shutter is open for a really long time and all that light's coming into the sensor and blowing it out. So I probably want to adjust my ISO pretty low. In fact, I'm going to go like inhuman kind of low. Oh, it only lets me go to 10, but all right, we'll just do like a slightly less open shutter, and then we'll also really stop down or stop up to the f22. Okay, so I'm going to send this to the picture viewer really quick so we can see the motion blur on those coffee beans. And you're going to kind of see choices that you'll make if you're shooting like product that has some animation in it or something like that. Wow, it's really taking its time here. I wonder if the stream is like, come on, Redshift. Oh, I mean, you can see the motion. The coffee beans are literally gone. Like they're not even there. So you can, okay. So if I'm shooting this in real life, like that's not going to work. Like that. How would I do that? Like I'm not going to send my client these like beans that don't exist, because that's the whole point. Maybe we're shooting like a shot for a coffee commercial or coffee company. So I'm going to turn that. I'm just going to stop that render right there. And let's jump back out into our camera, and let's change our shutter speed to something that is probably going to give us a really crisp coffee bean, which is probably going to be like 1/500th of a second. You can see everything goes black because that shutter is just opening up for 1/500th of a second and it's closing down. No light is getting into the sensor at all. So we need to get to a more realistic exposure here. Now, I still have a really high f-stop. We have hardly any bokeh, any depth of field happening here because of this very high f-stop. It's a very, very small aperture. So if I want to get more of that depth of field look, I might bring this up to maybe a 7 or an 8. And all of a sudden now we've got some nice depth of field. Of course, that let more light into the shot, and we've got nicely exposed beans here. So now let's render this shot out to the picture viewer. I feel like I'm going super fast through this. So like if you guys are, have a lot of questions, just save them to when we're done, and we'll try our best to explain it maybe when we're done with this little demo. All right, let's see. I don't know why it's taken so long. I feel like I had probably
streaming.
Yeah, it's probably the stream. All right, we'll let that cook. Come on. Or maybe it crashed. It may have, I think I just crashed it. Oh, Redshift. If anybody from Redshift is watching, shame. For shame. All right. Yep. It definitely crashed.
Oh, bummer.
All right. That sucks, because it was actually, you know what? I'm just going to bring it. I'm going to close it, and we're going to open up this again.
All right. I'll just get.
I think I probably froze too, didn't I?
You might have. I'm going to switch.
Did I?
Yeah. I'm going to switch to just us.
Yeah. Just switch back to us. Yeah. So the purpose of that demo is basically to kind of teach you to start thinking about f-stop and how it relates to the aperture size. Because if you start to apply like real physics and real limitations to your work, like if you were shooting it for real life, you're no longer guessing on that aperture size. Because I see when I talked about like pet peeves before, one of my pet peeves is when I see somebody using a crazy amount of depth of field that's like wildly unrealistic, and the exposure doesn't seem to match, and it just doesn't feel right. And the reason is mostly because they're just picking an arbitrary aperture size in the Redshift tag, the Arnold tag, or the Octane tag. And if you start to think about things in more realistic terms and real scale, and if you're working in scale, then you don't have to guess. You can literally just say, well, what would be, I'm outside. Like I have a shot that's outside at night. Like maybe I'm doing, a neon street, Tokyo style at night. Well, typically you're going to have you're going to have to like adjust your exposure pretty heavily for that very dark scene. You're probably going to be at like an F4, F5, somewhere in that range. And you can kind of see in your work, you'll see it. It'll start to feel more real. And you might not be able to, articulate exactly why, but this is why.
Chad, I might have to have you leave and come back and fix, because I think you're all frozen for everybody.
Yeah, I think Rhett's just been doing this for me lately, where it just completely like it dies, but takes my entire GPU down.
I'm going. I'm taking everything with me.
I know, dude. It's super annoying. All right. Well, it'll come back in a second. If you want to just like leave my, I can still see what's going on because I've got the YouTube going here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you can hear me, that's all that really matters at this point, I guess.
I'll just have you, if you leave and just re-enter, I can add you as a guest real quick. And that way we can answer a few more questions, kind of finish it off with video working. But if you like,
yeah,
I think if you,
I can't, because it totally took my whole machine is like frozen now. The whole thing is frozen.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's grab. I'm trying to think if I could put up a pretty Chad photo next to me. Everyone's
Yeah,
got
there you
you
go.
like frozen.
I know. At least I can see my face. I'm cool with my face. Like, it doesn't bother me.
All right, good. All right. Well, let's do a few more questions here, and then we'll wrap up today. And then I had this happen too. What I ended up doing was like only using one video card for rendering, and then one for streaming. I think that's what we have to do in the future.
I think I'm honestly, I think it's more of a Redshift thing, because I've been having this problem even when I'm not streaming, but I have not had any problems with Octane or Arnold GPU. So I think there's just something broken with Redshift.
Well, I think as I'm watching your demo, what I'm reminded of is that there's kind of like auto mode when you turn on Cinema 4D and flip on a camera and flip on an Octane camera and even add a tag or whatever. There's kind of this there's kind of like auto mode turned on, which is, it's kind of hard to overexpose. It's kind of hard to choose settings that are unrealistic. They just kind of let you do whatever, and it's always exposed okay, and they just let you cheat it a little bit. And for some things, that's okay. What I always want to make sure that you know, that there's a trade-off as an artist. For every setting that you allow the computer to choose for you, that is a trade-off on what the vision is that you should want to control out of your render. In other words, just like Chad said, the director of photography on a set is not randomly picking a lens until it looks good. They know what this scene requires. They have the experience to learn what works and what emotion is needed and what framing is needed on the scene, and and how much blur and how much light, all these things. They actively go choose the lens, the framing, how high the camera is. We didn't even talk about camera moves. We didn't talk about
oh man,
animating.
That's a whole other thing.
Animating with cameras. But like I said earlier, the best part about this is that you don't have to learn this in Cinema 4D. You can learn these things about your favorite films. Go watch how your favorite films are shot. Go find a director of photography, DP that you like their work. Learn about how they do their work and apply those things to your render. Chad, I got a little bit of Chad animation back. Oh my gosh, you came to life.
Am I coming back?
Oh my goodness, reanimated. Just when we're talking about
Dude,
animated camera,
like that is seriously like it like brought my whole system to like I couldn't do anything. I was surprised that my audio even came through.
You sounded great, buddy. You sounded great. So
Thanks.
Joel says references. I think that site Chad showed is a great place to start. Do a reference, and you can go find a shot. Go bring in just a character that has a head and a body, and like set up some of your favorite scenes in Cinema 4D. Try to get the lighting right. Try to get the depth of field right. Try to get the motion blur right. Sometimes there's maybe even some motion blur happening. The more that you can control these things and know what dials you're turning to get those looks, the more control you'll have over your render. And I'll tell you this, when I look at Chad's renders, and even of simple, very beautiful, simple objects, I will say, how does he make it look so good? It's all it is this, it's like I know how to do that. And
well, it's not all it is. I mean, come on.
Well, I'll just say in particular, you will take a what could look as a deceivingly simple scene and make it look real. And even if it's not of a real object, if it's like a piece of slime or a candy, morphing around, but there's something tangible about a lot of the work that Chad makes, and questions I've had over the years has always been around that. How do you make that look more real? And by choosing realistic camera settings, just like Chad went over, by choosing realistic lighting, by choosing where your camera goes in real life as if it was shot in real life, all of those little tweaks add up to the experience of seeing something like, oh, of course that's how it looks. I've looked at things my entire life. That is how something of that size and that scale and that movement should have. So just another reminder for me, really, to always think on that level. And to try to encourage you guys too as well. Chad reloaded. He's back. Chad is back.
I've got it. I'm screen sharing again. I don't care. I don't know if you're wanting to like wind this down or not, but
I think this stuff's so fascinating to me, and I'm just glad there's people still here watching. As long as you guys are interested in this, I think we could jump into Chad's thing and do it. And what I want to do is encourage you guys, if you have a specific question that's not a show and tell question, save it for the end, and we'll do like a rapid fire answer your final questions here in a bit. I am so glad that Chad has a car on the screen. Now let's cut to Chad's screen. Cars are such a great way to show a lot of these techniques, because we've seen a lot of cars in film. And Chad, why don't you talk through what you're doing here?
Yeah, I saw somebody chat like lens selection when it comes to product shots, and I think cars are probably like a really good way of showing those decisions, because it's just something that we've all seen a million advertisements for cars, whether it's like on TV, online, print, whatever. And so it's a good subject matter. So there's a reason why car photography very rarely will use a wide lens like this. And this is kind of why, because they just don't look very appealing. And unless it's like running footage, which basically that's just a fancy word or fancy phrase for shooting a car while it's driving, they will use a wide angle lens when they're showing the car driving sometimes, because they have a follow car that you may be following, or this car is following the follow car, and they need to get close, and they're going to use like a 17 millimeter lens. But typically, if you're doing a car beauty shot, you're not going to use a 17 millimeter lens, unless we're talking about like some crazy sports car that needs to look really out of this world, crazy and wacky. You might have a shot that looks something like this that is using a wide angle lens. But most of the time, you're using something like a 50 mil. Again, I'm just using my little script here. And you're using a 50 mil, and you're going to kind of set it up something like that, where you're keeping the frame, keeping the camera pretty damn close to the ground, and you're framing it out something like this. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll grab the camera, go over to the composition tab, and turn on my grid. And I like to work in the grid with threes, because, golden triangle, all that jazz, whole other video. And I just kind of like work out my composition, and maybe something like that. Sometimes I'll go even longer if I really want to flatten the car out. And maybe this is something more for print, where you're just kind of trying to show the different colors of the car. Let's also turn off the work plane. There we go. So this is kind of one of those situations where we talked a little bit earlier, somebody asked about a tilt shift. Now, a tilt shift can come in handy when you're doing something like a product shot like this, where you want the two tires resting on the ground to almost be at the same height in the frame, which means that the camera is like really, really close to the ground. You can see it way over here. And so a tilt shift is going to allow you to set up that shot like this. And the tilt shift is going to kind of shift the gate almost. It's going to like shift the whole image up or down. So that's, we'll do that in another video. I don't have time to show that today. But anyway, so like choosing the right lens for your product or whatever it is that you're shooting is just like crazy important. So like if I'm doing a car like this, I'm generally in a very long lens. If I'm doing like an action shot, maybe I'm going to grab Gorilla Cam and we're going to like track along with this car. You can immediately see this feels weird, right? Like you're not used to seeing a car driving in this type of framing because it's just a really long lens. But if we put something on it like a 35, it immediately starts to feel more realistic. And these choices that you have to make as a creative have to be, you have to make them. You can't just like leave it default and guess. It should be based in reality if you're going to have to, if you're going for that cinematic kind of realistic look. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show.
No, and I think while we're talking about car shots too, what you'll see in a lot of car product shots is they want this car to almost feel like a piece of jewelry. And they shoot it with a long lens to try to make it look almost smaller and more precious. And even more importantly, they light it with giant lights to really try to make this thing feel a little bit smaller and a little bit more beautiful and show you the curves of every little piece. They shoot it like a piece of jewelry almost to show off the curves and the elegance and the shape of this thing. It's hard to get a shape of a car because they're so large with just like, trees and buildings around it. So they instead blow up these soft boxes super large to try to make make the audience perceive it as more more beautiful and more like gem like, So it's, oh, look at that. We got an auto camera move here going. Are you panning on the fly now, Chad?
Yeah, I'm just kind of figuring out. It's a whole other video, but yeah, the motion of camera is very important when it comes to doing product shots and trying not to make them look too 3D, but just doing something like simple as like a dolly.
Yeah,
I'll
say that maybe you could add something too, Chad. Just two quick things about moving cameras. One is exactly what Chad's doing, which is keep it very simple. Learn the first 5 camera moves in the camera move book and use those until you're a master at them, and then learn the next one. Not a zoom in. Please do not zoom in.
I mean, you can. It's a thing.
It's a thing, but it's also zoom ins don't change the perspective of anything. It's just literally just zooming in, like in Photoshop, you could do a zoom in. Move the camera, but move it subtly, move it slowly, and learn the basics. So a very simple, slow pan, a slow push in. And what I'm saying is, don't start with the crazy camera crane shots or the helicopter shots or the multi-stage 20 different camera moves to spin around a car. Many things can be done with very, very simple, small camera moves. And if you watch your favorite scene, not an action scene, but your favorite movie scene between two characters, or maybe something interesting that's starting to happen, some exposition, you're going to see very subtle, very beautiful camera moves that you can use to keep people's attention, to make them see the interest in what you see and not just plant your camera in one place. Secondly, when we created Gorilla Cam, we created it explicitly for this reason, which was the ability for you to go from very subtle moves and just very natural handshake from a camera operator moving it, all the way to like this thing is on a helicopter, and there's presets for all that stuff. But in all of those presets, the biggest thing you have to do is tell it what scale you're working at. Are you trying to film a city, or are you trying to film a coffee mug on a table? And you'll notice we put that slider in because that's one of the most important things there is when it comes to animating a camera, is thinking about the scale. Again, it all comes back to the scale again. Thinking about the scale of your scene. So right within Gorilla Cam, you'll see a scale button. And it actually, I think there's even defaults like coffee cup, house, and the settings change depending on the scale of your scene because it matters so much. It's like the only question we really ask you up front when setting up a Gorilla Cam. So that was just a reminder for those of you in Plus that have Gorilla Cam installed. And I know a lot of you have been using it lately. If you haven't used the scale button, it's made for exactly that. Oh, there it is. So there's coffee cup, human, car, house, skyscraper. That is your scale. That's your rough scale idea, and that'll help you dial in exactly the look you're looking for. So awesome. We have a question here. It says, is there a quick way to jump from camera shot to another shot? You mean like an edit in cinema? I think they call that a stage object. Is that right? It's somebody else in chat. Help me out.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
You can basically do your edit right within Cinema 4D using a stage object. I would recommend doing an edit in an editor, frankly. But if you really need to jump between a lot of cameras right within Cinema, check out the stage object. I'm just answering some questions here as we get in here. Awesome. Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining on Twitch, Steffi. Appreciate it. All right, we got a few questions here. Ian, I'm gonna answer your question here in just a bit when we hop out of screen sharing mode. So before we wrap up, Chad, anything else you want to show us here in cinema before we answer the last few questions? And I get to open my
Here's a
beer here
tip.
in a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's a tip. It's an animation tip, actually. Yeah, camera animation tip. Don't be afraid to not put any eases on your camera at all. If you're doing a multi-camera shot of a product like this, I'm almost always using a linear keyframes. So, and I give plenty of heads and tails. I sometimes will put an ease at the beginning and end of the, depending on what I'm doing, so that when you go into the edit, this feels like an edit. It doesn't feel like the camera starting from a stationary point and then ramping into its animation. Don't be afraid of linear camera moves if they're done in a way that is mimicking a real thing. Like this is mimicking a boom. So it's a little bit of a boom up. And then this one is just dollying back. And just start thinking about like how you approach things in real life. And of course, the Gorilla Cam, we've got a follow car. Imagine this guy's speeding down the road and this car is like coming up behind us and we're just like, it's action shot, you know? So everything has a purpose. Everything is a creative decision.
Thanks for showing that. That's exactly why we build these tools, to try to make the stuff easier, to help you guys get good defaults from the start, so that you can take control of the things that matter, the things that we're talking about. How big is your scene? What type of move is it? What emotion does your does this piece need? What does the client want to do with this piece of animation or this still? We want to give you guys the tools to be creative, choose correctly for the scene, but then not get always tied into all the sliders and the details. And that's why we build a lot of these tools, to try to speed that part of it up. All right. I told Ian we'd answer some questions here. We got 3 quick questions from Ian. One is GSG Plus robot. He's been asking about this. I've been seeing it in there, Ian. I think he's asking about that mech robot that you use in a lot of renders, Chad. Can you tell Ian where you found that?
Yeah, that's just on Turbo Squid. I've used a couple of different ones. So if you're on GSG Connect, which is our Slack, hit me up over there and I'll try to send you a link.
I always forget. I got to mention GSG Connect more. If you guys have ever purchased anything from Greyscalegorilla, we have a Slack channel. It's all included. Come join. People are hanging out in the Slack channel, answering each other's questions, talking about hardware, talking about renderers, talking about NFTs, talking about what's going on in the industry. Come join us in the Slack. A lot of these questions we can answer, not only just live, but we all have a ton of other artists in Plus that are answering these types of questions. So please come join the Slack. It's in your account. Log into your account. You will find a button to join the Slack. 2, Ian asks, camera espresso rig from Chad, please. I'll answer this one real quick. Chad showed the lens settings and also this rig. Depending on how it's built and how comfortable Chad is with sharing and all that stuff, we're gonna try to find an easier way to get you guys scene files, things that we use in our live shows, and just give you guys a downloads area to try to get some of this stuff. I think there was even something from a couple weeks ago, Chad, that we mentioned, if we could figure it out, kind of share more of these things. So
Yeah.
keep an eye open for that. We don't have an easy way to do that right now, but we're thinking about that. We're trying to integrate that into a Greyscalegorilla account. There's even free stuff. Actually, if you sign up for a free Greyscalegorilla account, easiest way to do that is to go to our Intro to Cinema 4D page, sign up for a free Greyscalegorilla account, and we're going to have some stuff even in there as well. So don't forget that. And the third quick question was Corona integration for future material releases. So do you want to answer that one, Chad?
I was just given a license of Corona to check out, and I haven't had time to really look at it. It's been a little crazy here. But I want to. I'm going to play with it and see what it's all about, and I'm keeping an eye on it to see how many people are picking it up. I guess it's more like if the groundswell is there and there's enough people picking up Corona, then we'll definitely need to start thinking about like including that. So if you're a Corona user and you're like, I really want to use Plus, but I use Corona, hit us up on Connect and let us know, because we need to hear from a lot of people for us to really kind of put that whole thing into action. But I love it. I think it's great. It seems cool. The GI engine, the GI in Corona looks better than just about any that I've seen. So yeah.
Yeah, as always, we're always looking at the industry and trying to pick the renderers that most people use, so that obviously most people can join Plus and get and use all the tools and materials. Right now, it's Arnold, Octane, Redshift. If you use any of those 3 renderers, all of our material collections, obviously all of the lighting tools, everything works with those 3 renderers. And even physical render, a lot of the stuff, not the brand new materials, but many of the like a Pro. We actually have a list on the site rather than name it all. We have so many things now. But if you're physical or those 3 renderers, Plus there's plenty in Plus for you guys. For you using other third-party renderers, we're paying attention always to the market, and if things change a lot, we'll definitely take a look at it. Okay, so a couple last questions and we'll get out of here. Before I forget, the Slack channel reminded me to literally make a note to always try to bring it up earlier in the stream, but it also reminded me of something else I wanted to mention, which was these live shows. We're going to try to do one of these every other week. So if we're on schedule, it should be not next Thursday, but the Thursday after. And the best way to get notified that we're going live is to subscribe on YouTube and do the bell thing, right? And the bell has notifications that you could turn on. And if you turn, I think there's one for live shows, or maybe all just does it all. What that'll do is kind of remind you when we're going live. And we also try to upload when we're going live at least a few days ahead of time. So YouTube will actually tell you and remind you when we're going live. So if you want to make sure you hit it live, do the subscribe and do the belly bell thing too. All right. Where's GSG Connect on the site? If you log into your Greyscalegorilla account and you go to your account settings, there should be a page for GSG Connect. I think it's on the account page. I'll have to go in there. But just make sure you're logged in, and everybody that has an account and like I said, has purchased anything ever from us in the past should have that link, and we'd just love to have you in the Slack. Good. Ian, thank you for all the questions. I appreciate it. Cuddling himself into a GSG hoodie. That sounds very nice. It's late in Vienna. Thank you for staying up late and joining us. Adam, thank you so much. You know, we not only do all this stuff here at Greyscalegorilla to help the artists, help professionals get their job done faster, but obviously if you're new to the industry, you're trying to kickstart your career like Adam does, that's exactly what we built, why we built all this stuff, do these live shows, make the training, make these plugins, make these materials for you guys to create better work and to do this for a living. So thank you guys so much. Awesome. Bristol.
Nice.
Very cool. Thank you guys all for showing up today. London's here. All right, I feel like we probably have an entirely new crowd.
I know, they're all coming online.
So different time zones. We're going to end by asking you guys to shout out where you're from. We want to see everybody as we say goodbye. And thank you guys so much for coming. Let us know where you're from. We want to see all of these countries and states, and we just love seeing that. Awesome. Let's see here. Paris. Look at that. Thank you, Paris. Appreciate it.
Arkansas. Nice. London. Brooklyn.
Dude, amazing. London. Holland.
Man, it's craziness. I can't wait till we can travel. Can't wait.
Coming for you. Germany. Oh, man, that'd be great. Love to get out there. Moscow. Italy. Australia. Germany. Minnesota. Bam. Colombia. Denmark. I'm just clicking cities at this point. That's amazing.
PDX.
Berlin, Brazil,
crazy.
Montreal.
Richmond. I think we need to plan a road trip next year.
I'm all in, man.
Can we drive to Dublin? Is that possible?
Nashville. I love that place. Can you drive to Dublin? I don't know. I don't think that
Dublin is.
Might have to go through the North Pole.
Yeah, that would be not fun.
It's amazing. Turkey, London. Hey, from DC, what's up? Angola. Wow, that's
This
amazing.
is great.
Okay.
New Zealand.
Thank you
Sweet.
guys. This is amazing. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming to the live show. We also just dropped some a new classic tutorial today, which was all about how to animate using Signal. And so there's also what other training did we put in? Gorilla Cam. Actually, if you were interested in Gorilla Cam, you could start learning Gorilla Cam right now. It's on YouTube. We just dropped all of the Gorilla Cam training on YouTube, so you guys can watch it right now if you want. And tons of new videos have been posted here on YouTube in the last week. So if you haven't checked out the YouTube page in a while, go to the homepage. We try to keep it organized, put it in playlists. We're here to help and teach you guys that not only the tools. Cinema 4D is a super powerful tool, but we also want to teach you how to think like an artist and a photographer, and to think about rendering your work with intention. What is the intent? What is the goal? And giving you guys the tools and the knowledge to do that. So we always appreciate these live shows. Thank you, Chad, for bringing your amazing skills to the show.
Always.
RIP your machine. Let me know how that goes.
Anyone from Redshift watching, I'm going to be contacting them.
We'll get ready,
I'll be
guys.
shaking my fist.
Get ready for the email. Much love to GSG. I thank you guys. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. All right, Chad. Cheers. I'm gonna open my beer. It's officially Thursday. It's happy hour.
Dang, I gotta get a beer.
It's I'm gonna try to end the show with a different beer just so we can see. There's a Lagunitas, little something.
Oh yeah,
something ale. This is one of my faves, and I hope you guys, depending on your time zone, or oh my gosh, that's amazing. Hope you guys are enjoying your happy hour. Thank you so much for joining us, and Chad, thanks again. We will see you guys in another live stream. Don't forget to hit the bell. Am I going full YouTube? Are we ringing the bells here? Are we smashing the like button? What are we doing?
There's smashing involved and ringing.
There's ringing.
I think it's just what you have to do now, I guess.
Yeah, let me just tell you guys. The reason they all yell about it is because this is how YouTube decides what to show people. It helps us out. If you like what you saw, help us out. Give us the thummies. Do all the YouTube things. It helps us out. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Happy Thursday. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye.